Hello and welcome to this week's review on Vigilantes. This week I'll be looking at the episode Honesty. You know the rules and so do I. Let me know in the comment section down below and you will be read out in a future video. Whilst you're there, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today. It would do them a power of good. Now on to the review, and just very quickly, I do apologise if I sound a little bit out of sorts, I sound a little bit stressed or what have you. The past few days have been a nightmare for me. I've had a little bit of a health scare and my mind's been on other things. But with that said, I am happy to say that this particular edition of the manga has really freshened my mood up a little bit, because this particular episode, as we get into the positives, was another light, bright, fun little adventure from start to finish, with a decent slather of action and some great gags along the way. Now, yes, that's pretty much the same opening feelings I had to the previous episode, but to be honest, it perfectly surmises my feelings for this one. Though I will say that this particular episode didn't feel quite as disposable as the last one did, but we'll discuss that shortly. One of the things I really did enjoy about this particular episode is the fact of just how much of it was really focused on our hero, and truly getting a deeper insight as to who they are and to how they really balance everything. As has been commented on in this episode and previously, they're a university student, they have a part-time job, and they're also trying to be a vigilante, and getting an idea as to how they balance all those things and how they just kind of find time for it all is something that I like to see. I will be honest, and it might make me sound like a total loser or nutcake, but I really do like learning about the minutiae and the day-to-day actions of heroes, how they do the practical side of things, how they find time for doing everything that they do. Because let's face it, with a lot of superhero stories, be they in the form of anime or manga or comic books or cartoons, it's just a case of they have their daytime stuff and then they have their nighttime stuff, and you don't really get much of an overlap of understanding, okay, so how do they do this or that? How does Batman get the tech so that he can build the gadget that he's going to use to defeat the Riddler? You know how he does in a broader sense, but you don't know in a practical sense. You know, does he have to wait for 40 days handling and shipping to get the little microchip that he needs? I know that most people don't find that stuff interesting. I weirdly do. So when in the context of this, a vigilante story, seeing how someone has to balance just the everyday meat and potatoes, bread and butter aspects of their life, I enjoy, and it's something I really hope that we get to see more of later on. Yeah, it might be cliche to have it happen, but I would love it if there's just a little bit in a future episode or a future storyline where he's got this big exam coming up, but oh no, he also has to go on this stakeout to see where the trigger factory is, but he's also got this date with this girl that he likes, and oh, how is he going to balance all these things? Yeah, it's cliched, but I like that kind of stuff. I think it's kind of stuff that this kind of story really needs to just take it up a level, because this series has a wealth of personality to it, which there is a part of me that kind of likes it a little bit more than the main series. There's an element of it which is a little bit more subversive, whilst I will admit that I do think that My Hero Academia is a far more subversive and a far more a far deeper series than I think a lot of people give it credit for. This feels like it's taking it in a different direction. My Hero Academia is about hero culture and hero pop culture. This is more about your typical vigilante pop culture stuff, at least as far as superheroes is concerned. And I really like that. I really like these elements of personality that we see, on which we will discuss shortly with this particular episode. We also see Crawler's first day at university, and it is something that I can relate to, at least relate to some of it. That feeling of isolation where you're just there in your halls of residence or in your dormitory or whatever for the first time, and it's just you there, and that's feeling of, well, I'm here now, is something that's brilliantly conveyed there. You go from living in whatever accommodation you had beforehand to just being in that room or in that flat on your own, and everything just feels very big. And up until now, it kind of felt like a small thing. Maybe you had a tour of it beforehand, but now when it's just you on your own, no family, no friends that you know, and that's it. It was brilliantly well conveyed in that particular panel shot, and I did enjoy it. His first night out is another thing that I can relate to. Not the whole thing of him taking a girl back to his creepy penthouse flat, but, you know, that kind of feeling of while you're going out, you're meeting new people, as people are coming back to your place, that kind of thing, though, again, not quite as weird as that, because I didn't live in anywhere quite as weird or as creepy. But, you know, there is a part of me that does kind of stick out and kind of go, huh, with that whole living accommodation thing, like, Did Crawler really not check ahead of time that his penthouse was legit? Did he just see an advert on Craigslist or something like that saying penthouse apartment available for students, decent rates, and he just went ahead and bought it without thinking to investigate it ahead of time? Because I will admit that is something that does kind of piss me off a little bit when we talk about fictional depictions of university and university life, and it's something that I see a lot in B-movies where you have a character going to university, and rather than just doing what you'd think that 99% of all stories set in a university would be, which is them arriving in campus and them arriving in their flat or their halls of residence, they pick up a phone instead and go, hello, I would like the flat for, I'm wondering if you have an apartment available for $100 a week, please. And you're thinking, did you not do all this stuff ahead of time? Why are you just doing it now, literally on your first day? And, you know, it just feels a little bit weird to me. I'm not going to get on a tangent for it because, you know, that's not what we're here to talk about. One of the things that I did really enjoy about this week's episode was the great little character interactions that we had between Crawler, Popstep, and Knuckle Duster. Just this whole thing of them living together in Crawler's flat is just really great. Yeah, to admit that, yeah, it's a bit rude of them to just insert themselves into his life, but still it's fun, them all trying to get used to living amongst one another. Just this dysfunctional band of heroes that really don't have many things in common apart from their desire to do justice, and just having them all together like this, trying to make sense of it all, everybody seeing everyone in their natural default state, I think is great. We see Knuckle Duster without his mask on, we see Popstep without her makeup and her accessories on, and they just look like normal people, and it's getting to see them in their most truest form without the front and the bullshit that comes with being a hero / vigilante. And I do like that, and something that I do enjoy about this whole scenario, even if it might feel a little bit forced, is that it will help with the natural progression of their relationships and them getting to know each other and being closer friends. As I mentioned in my initial review of the first episode of this manga, there was a part of me that felt a little bit disappointed how everything just felt as signposted as it was. Here's the hero, well, of course here's the hero, here's the mentor, here's the rival / love interest, here's the big mystery thing we have to deal with, and oh, now they're friends because they're all working together and just pushing them together because the plot needed it to happen. And just this simple living arrangement will help that along and help build the camaraderie between them, which is something that I think that this series needs to help maintain the feeling of it. I think that this Vigilantes thing, it feels a lot more grounded than the main series. Yes, there is still that element of fantasy and wackiness to it, but all the same, it has a tangibility to it I feel that the main series itself lacks, and honestly a lot of other superhero vigilante stories lack. Trigger is really a weird thing, isn't it? It just is nuts. In this particular episode, and in the previous one and the one before that, there's a part of me that can't help but feel that this version of it feels far more powerful than what we see in the main series. Yeah, it's a little bit of a lottery, it seems, as to what kind of effects it will do, but here and now it just seems to be just going beyond plus ultra every time that someone uses it. Like, I can understand it with certain quirks, but it seems to be a case of, right, we need a quick disposable villain, but we don't have Nomus at this particular part in this timeline. What do? Let's have a guy jam himself with a thing, and now he's a walking salamander monster. And okay, that's neat and all, but it kind of feels like at this point for me, like we're just going over the same things over and over again. This fight this week is not as impressive as ones we've had previously. It's not as impressive as last week's, and it's certainly as impressive as the one before that. Sure, it's fun with some cool and funny little moments therein, but it just feels a little bit lightweight for me, in a way that I'm not particularly keen on. On a minor note, as far as positives and things that I did enjoy, the knockoff X-Men characters are back. Again, it's a cute little reference. I think they work great as background and side characters. They have a nice little energy to them, and their presence in the show doesn't undermine or detract or take away from anything anyone else is doing, which is as I've said in the past, I'm not a fan of pop culture references, but if you're going to have them, it's best to do them like this, where it doesn't overpower and distract or derail anything. They're just there. They're their own characters. They're their own personalities, and they fit in well with everything else. They're a nice little side thing. And I think they work best as a side background character. I don't really think they should become part of the main cast. Again, as I say every week, Knuckle Duster is still great. He is a brilliantly blunt object. His solution to every problem that he sees before him is just keep punching them and punching them and punching them until the problem is no longer there anymore. And I like it. Like, he has no subtlety to him. He has no class. In the behind the scenes stuff that I have with the copy of the manga that I have, it talks a little bit about how they came up with the idea for him and the fact that he's intended to be more like a Batman to All Might Superman. Only Knuckle Duster, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is nowhere near a Slussel. He's a very, very blunt object. He does what he needs to do. He takes the path of, well, I would say the path of least resistance, but given how much he bloody pelts everybody, yeah, it's probably not the path of least resistance. He just seems to make everything harder for himself, just almost because, well, that's what you have to do. That's how you leave an impression, and by gum does he really leave an impression. As we saw again this week, where once again he punched the superpowers out of the bad guy. Okay, I know that he's not literally doing that, but he's just pretty much just beating them up until they can't use their power anymore, but until the trigger stuff has run out, which is just, it's silly, but I enjoy it. I always get a kick out of seeing it. I will say that as a whole, and this talks to just more of a general feeling of positivity that I have towards this particular episode, and I suppose Vigilantes as a whole, that it feels very much like a traditional superhero vigilante story. You know, the whole, by day I'm this man, by night I'm this one. Or we have a hero who's just by day a mild-mannered student and worker at a petrol station, but by night they are a superhero. That itself is understandable. It's easy to make a sense of, it's easy to work with, it's easy to empathise with, and to get inspired by. We understand what the stakes are with this particular world and the consequences of his actions and what's at stake if he should ever get caught. It doesn't need any further explanation, but it all works for me. It's all very matter of fact. There's a very understandable element to it, which, again, doesn't require much explanation to it. It all works, it all makes sense, and there's an element to it which feels very grounded, and I want to continue to see that slightly grounded side of this. Because whilst I do enjoy the moments where Knuckle Duster is beating the crap out of a villain, whilst I do enjoy the moments of action and the fun little character moments and the superhero bits, there's still a few times I just think to myself, right, we need a little bit more of the mundane, we need a little bit more of the slice of life stuff so we get a further understanding of everyone, but still, I really do like this episode quite a lot, and like I say, given how I've been feeling over the past few days, it's been a nice little thing to help take the edge off stuff. But of course, as is always the case, we need to get into the negatives, and I will admit there aren't too many. One of my big issues is that at the start of this particular episode, we have the little bit by Present Mike explaining what a vigilante is, and I don't feel that 4 episodes into this we really needed that explanation. Of course, if English isn't your is your second language or you don't really have a good grasp of it, get an explanation as to what exactly a vigilante is, or, you know, it's something that would be useful to you. But for me, here and now, it kind of feels like a waste of time. I understand what a vigilante is, and even if I didn't understand what a vigilante is, the previous 3 episodes kind of illustrated that quite clearly, and as well as the reality of the fact that they're not licensed heroes. We understand that stuff. It's already been shown to us. We didn't need a reminder of it. And it feels like this is an element that exists purely and simply for, or I touch wood, will be the inevitable anime series. Because I can just see this moment appearing right at the start of this particular episode when it gets adapted to the anime. And it will be a cute and fun little moment, but you'll feel like a waste of time in an episode which itself really didn't need padding out. As short as it might well be, it still clipped along a decent pace, and I don't think the explanation as to what a vigilante is really helped things. And if there is another thing that I should be critical about, it is still the feeling that whilst I did enjoy learning more about our hero, whilst I did enjoy the character moments of it, it does feel like this is something a repeat of last week's episode, which itself arguably felt a little bit of a repeat of the previous episode. I think that we need something else to be going on with here. Whilst yes, I understand that Trigger is the big thing here, that is the big mystery threat that they need to deal with, I would be perfectly fine with an episode with our heroes just foiling a bank robbery or a jewel heist or something like that. Just some other type of vigilante work would be fine by me. We don't need episode after episode after episode where all our vigilantes are really doing is going to punch some weird squid monster in the face until they turn back into a creepy looking guy. As fun as that stuff is, it is starting to feel like a bit of a Groundhog Day thing. And bearing in mind, we've only got one more episode in this particular collection of the manga that I have. There is a part of me that hopes that this isn't going to be repeated again, because that kind of makes the willingness for me to continue to do these, especially bearing in mind that money's pretty tight for me at the moment, that a little bit more of a difficult hurdle for me to cross over. With that said, to get into the overview itself, as I've said previously, this was a great episode in and of itself. It was light, bright, fun, with some really great moments and great moments of character, and it really does feel at this moment like we're getting a better sense as to what this series really is and the tone and feel of it. It's developing its own identity, which is more than just, oh, this is just My Hero Academia, but with a couple different characters, or with a slightly different tone, or a slightly different art style. This here does have a distinct feel to it, and it's feeling more like its own entity. I would not say that I prefer this over My Hero Academia, because I think that at the end of the day, this is an apples to oranges thing. You really can't compare these two. It'd be like if I was to compare My Hero Academia to Judge Dredd. You know, I can't really compare those two things because I love those two series that much. So, you can't compare them. It really doesn't work. With that said, overall, still great, fantastic, good. With all that said and done, however, let us get into Comment Corner! Now it's time for Comment Corner, and here we have a comment from Big X1 who says, and this is in reference to last week's episode, I have to say that I did enjoy this episode of the manga, even if in parts it did feel like a repeat of the previous one, only with lower stakes overall. And I have to agree, and I don't want to repeat myself too much from the previous comment as well as things I've said in this review itself. Yes, it does feel like that particular edition of the manga did feel a little bit too much like a repeat of what things we'd had seen before. The stakes angle, I'm not entirely sure if I agree with, because I think that at this point it is just like Monster of the Week, and they're all going to have about the same level of stakes to them. And let's be honest, if these villains did chomp or bite and headbutt or whatever our villains or our heroes do much, yeah, there's stakes there, but still, I want to see a little bit more from here. I want to see a little bit more variety. Variety is the spice of life. That feels like it should be a slogan for this channel, given the name, but all the same. I want to see more. I want to see our heroes doing more things than just punching weird squid monsters in the face. I want to see them stopping bank robberies. I want to see them saving people from burning buildings. I want to see them stopping something that isn't just a squid monster. Please, for goodness sake, hopefully we'll get that going forward. With that said, however, the next video that I will be doing will be the 100 My Hero Academia video special. So as such, we will be taking a break from Vigilantes at least for the next week. So if you have any comments about this particular episode, they won't be read out in the next video that I'm doing because, again, this is going to be the special. I'm not going to reveal what this special is going to be, but what I say is that it's something that I've not done on this channel before, but I have hinted at doing something like it before. I know that's incredibly cryptic, but still, we'll see how it is, and hopefully it'll turn out well. With all that said and done, by all means, leave a comment down below. Like, share, subscribe if you want to see me do more stuff around My Hero Vigilantes, even after I finish this particular chapter of the manga. Let me know in the comment section down below. Like, subscribe, and do all that kind of stuff to get more from me. Thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on! It'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!